Hey everyone, I just finished recording with Matt Gray, and I have to say, one of the benefits of hosting this show is that I get to meet some amazing people that I wouldn't have known otherwise. And Matt is an absolutely phenomenal person, extremely humble, but what a great person he is. But he had some major calls. He was burnt out in his career, is having a big impact on his family, on his health, and he had to make a shift. And a shift he did. He really changed his style and his identity as a leader throughout that shift. So you're really going to listen to that. And if you're struggling with, how do you get to the next level of leadership, Matt's going to help you talk through that. He talks about just his focus and how much time he spends on the culture of his organization. It is an astronomical number, but they're seeing the fruits of that labor. And he's seeing that not just from a work and results and business perspective, but also the impact it's having on his people and their lives, both personally and professionally, but also the impact it's having on him because the relationship's building and he's just feeling really great about it. We also talk about the power of network. There's an organization that they work with to just grow stronger as a business and individuals. We talk about the power of network, and he gives some information as to what you could apply in your lives with your network to really grow. So you're going to want to check out this episode. Great discussion with Matt Gray. Take a listen. Hello and welcome to the Purpose Matrix. I am very excited for today's guest, Mr. Matt Gray, who I've been getting to know. We logged on here about a half hour ago and we've been talking about all kinds of things. I always say we should have hit record earlier. This is going to be a great discussion. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Phil. Thanks so much for having me. This is awesome, man. I'm excited to get to know you a little bit better and to share a little bit what's on my heart and what the Lord's doing and talk a little business. So it's good stuff, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, for our listeners, Matt is a very humble guy, if you can't hear that already, but doing great things. Vice President at Level MB Construction. He's helped really grow the company significantly over the last several years. He's really worked on himself, leadership style. They're doing some amazing things at the company that he's going to talk about. He was a very, very strong referral from a good friend or a mutual friend of ours, Doug Borchers, who was on the show a couple of weeks ago. So when Doug says something, Doug, if you're listening, when he says something, you just listen, you get this guy on the show. So I'm really excited for today's discussion, Matt. Why don't you tell us a little bit of your backstory from a, personal and professional perspective, and we'll get into some really fun things here.
Sure. So I was born and raised here in Troy, Ohio. Went to Troy Christian, met my wife there. And so we're high school sweethearts. Went to Wright State for business. Coming out of school, had a few different opportunities, but really enjoyed construction. I worked it in the summers and winters and had a good opportunity with a local construction company, commercial construction company. We also looked at moving to Florida and really felt like God had us kept us close to home here with family. So yeah, it's been a wild ride ever since. I live in Pleasant Hill, Ohio. My wife, Kristen, unbelievable entrepreneurial spirit. She is awesome. She's a rock in my life. We've got 5 kiddos. 2 boys and 3 girls, and they're just doing so much, just crazy, cool, awesome things. And the Lord is moving in young people and is moving in my kids. And when you're able, I don't know about you, Phil, but when you're able to look at your kids and see that they are in such a better place in life, and their hearts in such a better place than where you were at their age, man, that's such an awesome feeling. And that's something that I can't take a lot of credit for. My wife deserves a ton of credit, but ultimately the Lord deserves a ton of credit. So home life is good. It hasn't always been that way, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. It's trending upward. We're in our due season, and it's awesome. Work is great. I came on board after working a couple different, 2 different larger construction companies. I came on board at the end of 2016 here. Mike Twison's the company. He's my boss. He was our neighbor growing up. I've known the Twist family for a long time. Awesome Christian guy, awesome heart. So the opportunity presented itself at the end of 2016 to live, work, and play in Troy, Ohio, where I was born and raised. I never thought I would have that opportunity. It was cool. It was special. And so I did one night during the transition. I think after I gave my 2 weeks notice, I was working for Shook Construction at the time. Awesome people, awesome company. I woke up in the middle of the night and I thought, what the heck are you doing, man? You've got 5 kids. a couple of which are in diapers at that point in time. What the heck are you doing, taking and seizing this opportunity? But we haven't looked back ever since then. It's been an awesome ride. I think we're a little over 50 employees now. This year we'll do close to 35 million in revenue. And it's hiring fantastic people. It's protecting the culture at all costs. It's equipping those people to do an awesome job. And Mike and I will be the first to tell you, we joke, like, we're not the sharpest tools in the shed. And for this thing to have taken off the way it has, I don't want to discount it. It's come at a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of challenges. But you look around the people that we're surrounded by, not only in our personal life, but here at Level NB, it's amazing. It's a blessing. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself and kind of where we're currently at. But if I don't say it in the rest of the podcast here, the one thing I do want to say is, whether it's Level MB, whether it's my family, whether it's the personal value that we've created maybe for ourselves or in our community, at the end of the day, it's all the Lord's. And for us to try to be intentional and be a good steward of the blessings He's given us, we're lucky to be able to do that and be in that spot. So hopefully that answered your question.
No, that's an amazing intro. And I definitely want to come back to faith and how you Level MB thinks about that and how you've integrated it. Before I do, I want to talk about, we talked a little bit before, but not just a half hour ago, but also in advance of the discussion, you're kind of asking some questions. You wanted to be really prepared. And you said something that I want to challenge a little bit. You said, and I'm asking this because I think a lot of people struggle with this, Matt, and they're not real sure what to do. But it took a lot of courage in 2016 with 5 young kids, babies, a lot of responsibilities, a lot of financial responsibilities, a lot of, just sleepless nights, literally waking up like, what am I doing? That took a lot of courage to pull that trigger. And you said beforehand, I don't know, like you thought of courage as like rock climbing. I don't know what you said, but rock climbing or crazy things, which maybe those take courage. But, we have a lot of opportunities day to day, week to week in our careers professionally to take, to make moves. When you were thinking through that move, what was really like, what got you over the hump to make the transition? Like what, you probably made good money, had a big, title, all that stuff, but what got you to pull the trigger ultimately?
I think as a leader, you can never go wrong with the answer people. And that sounds cliche, but Mike Twist, like I said, I've known him and his family for a long time. If this opportunity would have presented itself with any other person, individual, company, I would not have made the move back in 2016. Like I said earlier, the company I work for, and a little plug for them, Shook Construction, great people, great company. Never thought I would ever leave there. However, again, the opportunity to be a part of something special. And really, I mean, Mike is an awesome manager. I'd bring ideas to him, and he does not micromanage. He kind of lets us do our thing. And so the opportunity to kind of grow something, even though it's not mine, to grow it and treat it like it was mine, and to build an all-star cast of characters, I mean, I just knew was something super special. And those opportunities don't come about every day. And to do it in Troy, Ohio, where I lived at the time and where I grew up, was just super special. So again, I think it was Mike and his heart. And then meanwhile, having the support network at home, having a wife that believes in me. She can take some crazy chances sometimes, just like I do. And I think sometimes we can be our biggest coach or maybe our worst enemy, because we push each other to do some crazy things sometimes, but it's always for the right intentions. And, again, both Mike and my wife.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I think is through that process and through those decisions and through those crazy things, as you allude to, that you and your wife decide to do, and like, why do we put yourself through this? The reality is I would guess that anything that you say you put yourself through, it was either successful or it was a really good lesson. And I'm sure there's a little bit of both, but we have to put ourselves in adverse situations and challenging situations. And, a lot of times we can't see through the fog. We can't see through the dark. We can't see the other side, but usually those things things are happening for a reason, and there's growth that are a part of that.
Yeah. And sometimes
talk,
it's about just taking the next little step, through the darkness. You may not see the light, but you may see, what's right underneath of you and what's a couple feet or a couple steps in front of you. And, sometimes that's the opportunities that life present itself. So you just got to have the courage to take the step. Sure.
Yeah, actually, this is ironic because I just wrote about this in our newsletter, but my son and I went on a hike in August out in Colorado, and it was a 3-day hike. It was, by the way, if you have a chance to go on a trip that is outdoors like this with any of your kids, 101, it was like, it makes me emotional thinking about it. It was the most incredible thing ever. Physically, it was challenging. The hardest part by far was we got up at 2 a.m. on the last day, climbed the mountain, cold, windy, freezing. I mean, I really learned where, sorry for my French here, but I really learned where the phrase pissing in the wind comes from, by the way, Matt. I digress. I won't go there.
That's awesome.
We're not editing that out. So, but once we get up to the top and we're on the ridge and it's rocky and there's big steps up and down. I remember having my pole around my son. Like if he fought, like not because it was that dramatic of a drop, you couldn't see. It was dark, cold, windy, and you couldn't see. So the fear of the unknown was there. We got past it. We went really slow. He was terrified. We get up, we climb, sunrise, like hard to describe, but I really remember the ridge. And I remember that part the most, probably more than the sunrise. We come back down. We have to cross the ridge again, daylight, and we've done it. Piece of cake, right? So like you learn the lessons from those things. And then once you've done it once, you're like, what the heck was I so afraid of? Now, there's danger and there's fear, but
I love that analogy because so many times we're fixated on the sunrise, right? Like the goal, once we get there, then we'll have this amazing view. And sometimes it is about the view, but sometimes it's about the journey and it's about what happens and it's about the people that you survive it with and the stories that you're able to tell. And it becomes more about the journey than about the view. So I love that analogy. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think having that mind, people are probably like, oh, journey, cliche. What? Having that mindset, the biggest thing is go towards the sunrise, but just know that if you mess up or you made the wrong decision, you're going to learn from it. You're going to grow from it. And even if the journey isn't fun and exciting, whatever, you're going to learn and grow from that situation. So I want to come back to your introduction though, Matt, because you talked about both at level MB now, and you get to go to work with amazing people and you protect the culture at all costs. And by the way, you made the decision, which I think is important. A important connection is you went to work for a company because of the people, but now you're in the position where you're hiring everyone and you want the culture to be such that everyone wants to work there because of the people. So protecting the culture at all costs, like what does that mean? What are you guys doing? What does that mean to you?
So, I mean, part of every initial interview is we share with them that we're a faith-based company. That doesn't mean that every employee here is a believer, nor are we trying to push that on every employee. It's just a matter of who we are. It then becomes a filter with how we do business, how we treat people, how we treat our clients, how we treat our employees, the level of transparency that people experience when they do work with Level MB. And so again, if you filter decision making and our workplace environment and our teams through that filter, at the end of the day, individuals have an option. They can either buy into that culture or ultimately, I mean, it's kind of to a point, our culture is so good. And I don't say that in a prideful way. I say that in and man, it's taken us, a few years to get there, and there's been some bumps in the road, but it's in such a good spot that it becomes very apparent pretty quickly when someone is not making decisions in alignment with the culture. So again, hiring, we protect it at all costs throughout the hiring process. And then once it becomes apparent that there's not alignment with the culture, we are very quick to have. And one thing that I've challenged our people with over the course of the past year is having difficult conversations. Telling the truth saves time. So when it does become apparent, let's nip it real quick. Let's have that conversation, take the individual out to lunch and say, what is going on? I mean, I just had this conversation this morning with a young man that works for us. There's something going on. What is that? How can we help it? And maybe that's an opportunity to introduce our cares team or a workplace mentor or something like that. But how can we help come alongside the employee? Because I've told almost every single person that I've known that's come to work here, I care more about you as an individual than I do about your employment here or even about this company. This thing could burn down to the ground. And at the end of the day, you look around and it's all the people that are left that really matter. So sometimes the rubber meets the road with that statement. And sometimes it means ultimately seeing an employee or maybe somebody that's become a friend, their next best step in life is to exit the company and do that one thing that they're passionate about. And we want to be their biggest fan in that exodus. And we want to learn from them just like we hope that they learn from us. So again, just kind of creating that kind of an environment where people are safe, they feel heard, and alignment amongst the team.
Yeah. And in my opinion, I guess we kind of really clarified our core values maybe a year ago. So as we're hiring both people in the office, but also in the field, and we're just clear on what our core values are. One of them is purpose and faith. So we don't hide from that. We just had a discussion yesterday and it leads to great conversations and people want to work for a company like that. So I want to ask you did a lot of work to create the culture. The leadership team, people that work for you. I'm sure a lot of people had a hand in this.
Oh, absolutely.
And leaders create the culture.
Still have a major hand in it for sure. We've got an awesome leadership team and a lot of individuals that pull a ton of weight. So it's absolutely a team.
So I learned this kind of, I don't know if it's equation, but leaders create the culture that drive the behavior that gets the results. And the reality is your culture of your company, good or bad, is driving the behavior of the company today as you speak, or the culture of your team. If you're leading a small team, wherever it is, the culture of the team as it stands today is driving the behaviors. Mm-hmm. You as the leader have to change the culture. That's not moving a speedboat, that's moving a barge. So that takes time and effort and energy to do that, but it has to start there. How much of your time do you feel like in your role are you spending on culture versus other aspects of the business?
So rewind maybe up until about 2.5 years ago, there wasn't very much time proactively spent on culture. Because of some success and being able to get the right people in the right seats, I now am able to I probably spend 75 to 90% of my time on culture. And even the meetings that I'm in, it's just a constant reminder, not only to our clients, but ultimately to our employees as to who we are and what we're all about. We hit on it previously, having difficult conversations. I feel like we've gotten a lot better at doing that. But working on the business and specifically working on the culture anymore is a big part of my role here. And it's kind of the same. It's kind of the same thing at home. I don't know if you've transitioned into that role. I kind of hit on it when I sent you some notes of more of a mentor. And I'm definitely entering that phase at home with my kids. You're no longer the authority figure. You're coming alongside and you're becoming more of a mentor. So again, to receive the phone calls from like the young man this morning, one of our employees and somebody that I know pretty well from our community, man, it just gets me excited because I can get excited about talking about construction and building buildings. That's cool. That's a big reason why we're here. But ultimately, when you see people buying in and you see their wives saying, and you hear their wife saying, man, since my husband went to work there, he's a different person. He comes home smiling. He's mentally clear. He's engaged with me more than, when he worked at a previous company. All of those conversations are just huge wins for us and get me really excited at this point in my life.
Well, I think so. First of all, the challenge to anyone that's listening is 75 to 90% of time on culture. And because, that culture is driving the behaviors. That's that's a successful growing business. So like if you say, oh, that's too much, then you really got to question your priorities and your focus as a leader and what you're focused on. Not saying you're not doing anything else, but anything else you're doing better be really, really impactful and really, really strategic, because there's nothing more important, in my opinion, than leadership and culture. I want to take what you just said about the example you had with employee. How much do you talk about this at work? Like work life, personal life, balance, alignment. What do we had this debate, maybe, I don't know, beforehand, but I think we're pretty aligned on the topic. How much do you talk about personal life at work, or is that just there's an overflow, so it's natural?
For me, it's always been natural. And, early on I joked, I'm a horrible liar. For me to act like I'm one way here in this environment and another way, at home, I would be so bad at it and not to mention, obviously, it's not a reflection of my heart. And meanwhile, I mean, you can speak from experience, Phil. Anymore, work is so in relationships. It's all about relationships. It's so integrated into community, into coaching your kids' basketball game, into sponsoring the baseball team, and no matter what it is, there's so much integration. So there has to be a ton of alignment, and there has to be a ton of balance. And I didn't always do that so well. And now, this season of my life, I'm working kind of overdrive to make up for some of those shortcomings in the past. But again, I'm blessed to be at this point and to be able to do what I do, and to be able to be surrounded by the people both at work and at home that make it all possible. So
I think, when I was back in the corporate days, there's some other departments, other groups maybe that had some pretty serious leadership challenges. And I remember one of the employees reaching out to me just for help. And honestly, it was a little bit out of desperation. Like, we need to do something because of the impact on people and just the stress levels and then home life impact, right? Mm-hmm. So whether it's intentional or talked about at work or not, there is absolutely an overflow from work and your team, your people's work lives to their home life. And that can be a bad thing if it's a bad culture, and it can be a phenomenal thing if it's a good work culture. So I want to commend you for, just being the mentor that you talked about, no matter what topic it's about. So, I want to come back to it because you teed this up and you said it wasn't always like this, but I think you said, the home life is good and we're on the right trajectory, but it wasn't always like that. So Tell me more about that.
Yeah. And I think any business leader, owner, you have it, has probably went through the same season. So I'm not going to share anything earth shattering, but obviously when you're employee number one and, at that point in time, what was I don't know, early to mid 30s, chip on my shoulder, something to prove, failure's not an option. I was all in. I was all in on seeing this thing succeed. I was all in on Mike Twist and his heart and the culture that we wanted to create. So by default then, or to my fault, I should say, I was all in to a fault. My balance between work and home life, wasn't great, and part of that's by necessity. You shoulder this load and you come in early and you try to get off at a decent time so you can make ball games and eat a quick bite, with your family at dinner. But as soon as everybody kind of goes their separate ways for the evening, I'm back in my office working a couple more hours. And that process, and again, kind of by fault, I was everything to the business back then, and in an unhealthy way. So I had back in I think it was 2020. I had a seizure one night, and it was kind of very scary for my wife, my family. I thought I was having a heart attack. My health wasn't the greatest, and that was kind of the wake up call. It was a wake up call for me, as a man, as a husband, as a business leader, as a dad. That if I didn't get out of the way, I was going to cause some serious harm, not only to myself and my family, but also the business. And so I remember coming in and having a conversation with Mike, like, hey, we're to that point that I've got to make some tough decisions, and we've got to really go out and recruit the next generation of leadership here, and invest in some individuals. And again, like I said before, he was all in on that. So that next year was really, really tough. And again, what led up to that was me just burning out, right? Um, but when you make a decision as a company or as individuals, or even Mike as a business owner, that, hey, this next year is going to be an investment year, it's going to be a rebuilding year. And we went out and got aggressive with the people we felt like would help take us to the next level and really allow me to offload some of my loads so that I could be more healthier at home and have a more balanced life. Um, that year was very stagnant as far as financially. But what it did is it laid the foundation. The next year we had a record year, and it just took off. And it's more than taken off financially. And I love this in life, and it's happened so much here personally, especially in the past year, where I thought I might have been the glue holding stuff together, or the one that was supposed to lead the torch in a certain direction for whether it's here or community or personal life or whatever. And then you feel the nudge of the Holy Spirit saying, "Man, I need you over here." And when you lay that down, and then you watch, like in the rearview mirror from a distance, you watch him through others that then pick up that torch and run with it, do the most amazing things. It builds so much confidence and reassurance that that season has moved on, and there's so much beauty in that, and there's so much beauty in seeing other people grab that torch and run with it. Um, to it's a couple years there of training and coaching and mentoring, but now we're to a place where the company as a whole, so not only my life, but also the company, is much more balanced, much more stable, um, and seeing people thrive. So it's awesome.
I haven't connected these dots necessarily myself. I mean, I thought about these two things, but how they connect, and your role as a leader and you personally, but if you're listening to this, your company, your organization, your team, and how tied is what you do as a leader? Like, so your specific leadership style, how tied is your identity to that leadership style and what you're doing? Because what I heard you say is that your identity was tied to how you were leading the company and the style, the guy that has to be involved, have to probably making decisions, not delegating because this can't help. It won't happen right without me. I'm just speaking of things that I'm not saying this has happened to you, Matt. This has just happened to me.
No, it absolutely has happened to me. You're reading my mind here.
And how did you work through that? Because there's people listening that they're like, and there's a fear here too. If I delegate this and I don't have to, like, what's the value to me or from me? What value am I adding to the company? And I think the most important value is developing other leaders. And if a leader, if your boss or whoever doesn't see that, then you're probably not at the right place, quite frankly. So talk me through this a little bit.
I totally agree. And actually had the opportunity to invest in a young man recently that different construction company, even may be a competitor of ours, but he came to me personally, and he's a young project manager, and he gave me this example. And he's like, "Man, I'm torn because I'm getting pressured internally to spin this to our client this way. However, I don't feel like that's right. I feel like we have some ownership in this." And my response to him, and ultimately to our employees also, is always lead. If you lead with humility every single time, here's where we screwed up. Here's where we could have done something different. And this is how we're going to make up for it. 9 times out of 10, you're going to be met with a warm reception. The client, individuals, whoever is going to in turn bring to the table where they could have done better. And that's the kind of relationship and environment that you want to work within. and honestly, if that opposite party doesn't come with those same sentiments, then you're probably at the wrong table. You're probably at the wrong company. So it's funny you said that. I just had that same conversation last night or two nights ago with a young man that was kind of struggling with the same thing.
This identity crisis of title, leadership style, role, and a lot of people think identity is tied to title, but it's really it's what you're doing as a leader, as an owner. Are you
Absolutely.
like, do you have to prove to the organization you can still go get these strategic sales, or you can still go solve these problems? And I'm sure you can do that, and you've proven it. But how does this impact? Yeah, like, was that identity shift a struggle for you?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a time a couple of years ago where, um, quite frankly, if I'm being honest with you, I felt like I've created this, right? I mean, this is the thought that's going in my head, like, and I've made this what it was. And man, again, that like through a lot of thought and prayer, it's like, what the heck am I thinking? Why am I wanting to battle everything and have input in everything? Because at the end of the day, hey, it's not mine, it's the Lord's. And secondary to the Lord, it's Mike Twist, it's his company. He owns it. So why am I coming at it with so much pride? And once I realized that that was pride talking, and I really took a step back, and again, if your purpose is ultimately to glorify the Lord and increase the value in others, if that's truly your purpose, then man, I'm speaking of myself here. My approach was all wrong. So again, circle back and humble myself and say, ultimately, this isn't mine. I'm a steward of it. And while I'm here, I want to better the people around me. I want to better this place. It all of a sudden shifts your focus and your response and even your decisions. So it has been a big struggle for me in the past. Again, that kind of timed out with my health scare and getting the right people in here and really building a team and again, all of those are ingredients to once those items were addressed in some way, shape, or form, then we really started to take off and haven't looked back. So um, again, you just got to know when to get out of the way, when to let go and get out of the way and to step back and watch and see what the Lord's doing and what people around you are doing, because it's a pretty cool view.
So first of all, those who humble themselves will be exalted, and those who exalt themselves will be humbled. And there's truth to that in business and in leadership. It's truth, right? So I don't know if I got the exact line from scripture right, but it was just, I was actually talking to the kids about it because it was talked about, I think Sunday in church or maybe the prior Sunday. Anyway, I digress. But one thing I do want to talk about this topic of faith, and one of the key principles of excellence and success for what you're trying to do is, in my opinion, is association and your network. And we talked a little bit about, I've heard of the organization before. And so the organization that Matt and Level MB work with is called C12. And I want to ask him about that. Before I do, I just want to emphasize that if you're not part of some sort of networking group, mastermind group, accountability group that's just four buddies or four friends that get together and are trying to grow together, you're missing the single biggest, in my opinion, opportunity to grow as an individual and as a person that there is. And I say this because before 4 or 5 years ago, I didn't have any exposure to this. And now I do through both business and personal life. And it's been game changing for me. I've heard a lot of great things about C12, but just tell us more about that and if you agree or disagree with my comments there.
I totally agree. That was part of that discussion I had this morning. Going back to that, the young guy said, I've really looked at my life over the course of the past year and the trajectory and the road I'm heading down. I don't like what I'm seeing. And his response to that was, I think mentally, if I just get tougher, then I'll be able to tackle it. And I said, yeah, your mentality has a lot to do with it. I don't want to discount that. However, from my experience, and Phil, that's what you're saying, having a network of trusted individuals that align with where you want to go in life. And if you look at them you look at their families, you look at their businesses, you look at their network. If that all aligns with the goals that you have, you need to shift yourself to hang out and be around and rub off on those people a little bit more. So networks, and again, it comes to your point, it comes at all levels. As C12 has been a tool for us here at Level MB, and we've definitely implemented a lot of ideas that have come as a result to the curriculum there and the individuals that we sit around the table with. But that's the business side of things. Also, personally, you've got to have that same group. If you're a guy, have a couple guys you get together with and that you can thoroughly trust. Your 2 a.m. friend kind of guy is super important, because we are not meant to do this life alone. Having a network around you can fall back in tough times, or that you can step into and support others in your network is what adding value in others is all about. So going back to C12, the way that that's structured is they have a presidential course and then a key players group. You meet one day a month. It's yourself and then 11 other peers that are kind of same level within an organization. A lot of different organizations or industries represented in the room. Typically, it's kicked off with a devotion. The devotion segues into kind of a monthly business lesson. And it's all faith-based. And so all of that really helps create a lens to look at the information through, look at the business through, look at people through. And then ultimately, after lunch, one person in the group presents on their company, current happenings, current issues. And then it's really that person's opportunity in a confidential setting to bounce those ideas off of their peers, their trusted peers. So some of the things that we've implemented, we touched on earlier, but a workplace chaplain, Level MB, has both a male and female chaplain. I meet with the male chaplain, Alan. We try to hit every job site once a month together. So that's super valuable. And then the ladies within the organization have a female chaplain. So that's been really cool, an intangible benefit that, again, at 2 a.m., something crisis strikes and you don't know who to call. And maybe they don't feel comfortable calling me or Mike or HR. At least now they have a resource. It's an app on their phone. They know the face. They know the name because we talk to them once a month out on a job site. We implemented a CARES team. So that's a group of about 6 individuals within the company that they're kind of keeping a pulse on things. And we encourage other employees, hey, if you see something going on in somebody's life, or if you're aware of something, notify the care team. And that's not being nosy. That's caring for your neighbor. Allow the care team to love on and connect with and figure out how we can best support individuals. Another thing that we've implemented is 1% of our revenue we give away to area nonprofits and community organizations. That's really a reflection of Mike's heart. And I think, honestly, that's something that Mike has taken to C12. And that's one of those ideas that other people in the room have heard Mike's heart and have heard what Level MB is doing there. And so they're implementing, some of those measures into their company. So again, it's an iron sharpens iron kind of mentality. It's one day a month. So yes, it's a big commitment. But again, what if that's truly a priority for you in your personal life and in your business? You got to take the time to do it. So and by investing in others, they're also investing in you. So it's really special.
Yeah. And I would say if it's not a priority right now, I think it's because you don't understand the potential impact it can have Absolutely. On you. I mean, just because it wasn't a priority for me at all 4 years ago, because I didn't know what the heck a mastermind even meant, or what a roundtable or just a networking group, like peer group, accountability group, like what the heck do those things mean, right? So if it's not a priority, I just would really question you because the power of it is, you got to go, you're aligned on values in the context of C12, and in any group you're in, you better be aligned in the values of it, right? It's not, that doesn't mean you agree on everything and all strategies, but you're generally aligned on values. That's, of course, needs to be very important. but also you get to present your business and get feedback on your challenges. And this group of 11 people would probably be about a $20,000 a day cost to your company if you just did that one time. But also on the other side of it, when you're sitting in the room and you're watching someone else present, you're learning from them. And then you're listening to 10 other people give that person feedback and you're saying, holy cow, I need to apply that in my business. And I'm getting so many different ideas. So all the things that Matt just talked about, I'm guessing, so you said you guys came up with 1% revenue, but I'm guessing a lot of those ideas weren't your guys' ideas. They are
correct,
begged, borrowed, and stolen. And that is
Absolutely.
completely okay because
Absolutely.
we're aligned in our goal. This group of people all wants each other to grow their business, to have an impact on their people, organizations, give money. So if it's not a priority, I would just really challenge you to think about how can you do this, whether it's small within your company, within your team, do something, or find an organization that you can be a part of if you're a business leader, business owner, entrepreneur, whatever it might be.
Yep. Totally agree.
So Matt, I want to ask you, looking forward, right? So the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years for you, how do you think about this? What does this look like? Personal, professional? What are you trying to do?
I think both, and I hit on it earlier, but both personally and professionally, it's to continue to be a mentor and to continue to see other people around me increase in value, step into new roles, or, even when I think about my kids, new chapters in their life, and to reinforce them, to support them, to be available to them. And it gets me so excited. It's, we've got a younger group here within the company that we're finally, like, the seasoned guys are doing their thing, but we're finally to a point where we're integrating the next generation. Kids coming right out of college or even high school, and being able to, even within Level and B, roll out mentorship programs in the field to partner up young men and women with other guys and gals that have the experience within our organization. To be able to do that here, to be able to do that at home, to be able to do that in community, that's the primary focus. And where things go from there is part of the adventure, is part of the journey. I don't have this like preconceived goal of what something looks like in 5 years. All I'm doing is prioritizing the next several steps and what I'm doing to add value into others. And then part of the excitement is to just see where the Lord takes it on all levels. And I love that adventure, ultimately that's what it is. I love how that boils down to adventure.
Well, and I think you can feel not just, for you listening, you can sense the humility from Matt, but also the contentment. And I don't think from you telling your story, I don't sense that contentment was there when you were hustling like crazy and burnout and having the challenges you're having. But you can just feel the contentment and at ease with, there's uncertainty, right? You even said before the discussion, we're growing and get ready for change because it's going to be happening. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
But I think when you're on the right path, you don't have the exact map of how to get where you're going, but you know where you're going, you know what you're doing. And there's a lot of just contentment, I think, that comes from that. So if you step back though, so we look forward, but let's look back a little bit, step back and reflect, look at the last few years. How does what you do, how does what you're doing, how does it make you feel?
Oh, that's a good question. You just rattled off the word contentment multiple times. And so that's ingrained in my head right now, but that's also a pretty good reflection of how I feel. There's a huge amount of happiness and excitement and fullness, I guess is probably the best word, fullness. That and even earlier this year, that I didn't necessarily have in my personal life because of my own mistakes, and still, I'll be the first to admit that as I'm trying to figure this life out, I still every day make mistakes. I make mistakes here at work. I make mistakes in my marriage. I make mistakes in my family. And however, as we're conquering things and as we're rising to the challenge, and as I'm rising to the challenge, to see the fullness in relationships that I now have in my, in my marriage with my wife, and my relationships with my kids, and relationships with my coworkers, and the relationships here, in the leadership team. A lot of those relationships weren't always like that. And I was probably, I was a common denominator as to why they weren't, but to see the healing that's happened there, it's a fullness that I've never had, and a fullness that, quite honestly, I want other people to have and experience. And it's through making mistakes that you really see and appreciate, and are content with where you're at. And I don't want to use that as a, hey, I've arrived, because we haven't, and I haven't. It's just taking a step back and admiring, some of the blessings that have unfolded, before you buckle down and chase those next 3 to 5 years that you mentioned. So I hope that answers your question, but I would say fullness.
Yeah, I like that word a lot. I mean, you know who you are, you know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Mm-hmm. I think the depth of relationships that you have in your company and in your family, mm-hmm. are probably deeper because of the amount of time and emphasis and focus on culture. So, mm-hmm. so the byproduct of you focusing on culture as a leader isn't just that your company is going to be way better, your people are going to be way happier, you are going to be way happier, because you're getting to play that mentor role and focusing on culture, which is creating deeper relationships, which is absolutely important to have fullness. So I love Absolutely. That answer, Matt. I appreciate the discussion so much. We just met. We talked a little bit over email. We met here just before this discussion. We've had a great discussion here. I told him beforehand, I'm pretty sure we're going to have a coffee or lunch here real soon. And we were going to do that, Matt. So sorry, but since I said it on the air, you have to live up to that and grab coffee or lunch with me. But I appreciate it so much. I appreciate you bringing so much value to me and to our listeners. I know people appreciate it. How can people find out more about you, what you're doing?
So I'm not even on social media, kind of checked out of social media. So I would say, if you're interested in Level and Be, check out our website, work through that. I'm on LinkedIn. I guess that is the one platform I'm on. So if especially with this being a lot of a professional network here, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to give you my contact information. Always love building my network and connecting. So if anything we talked about, if any one of your listeners has more experience, and if there's something I need to learn from them, please reach out. I'll buy coffee. I know a pretty awesome little coffee shop in Pleasant Hill where I live. I'll be happy to buy a cup of coffee and meet up with you. Or in turn, if I said anything that any one of your listeners wants to hear more of, or if I can benefit this world, this community, I'll certainly do whatever I can do to make that happen. So Phil, I appreciate your heart, and I appreciate it. It's, even though I don't know you really well, just having to get to know you a little bit here, your heart is apparent in everything that you do. I see your why. I love it. I'm a huge fan. So whatever I can do, man, to help you, whatever network that you think I need to be a part of, I am all ears, man. I'm bought in. So thank you very much for your time.
That was pretty generous, and I would say I'm a work in progress here, Matt. So, but I appreciate the kind words.
We all are.
This was a fantastic discussion. Again, as I said, you brought a ton of value. We appreciate it so much. For the Purpose Matrix, signing off.